Now, that is a fascinating proposition. The idea that symbolic language might matter more than qualia itself. The more we think about it, the more it opens up deep reflections on the nature of experience, understanding, and communication. Let's start with a basic truth. Language is the medium through which we share ideas, experiences, and even emotions. It is the bridge between individual consciousness and collective understanding. When I say red, I'm not actually transferring my experience of red to you. What I'm doing is invoking a shared symbol, a word, that stands in for the experience of redness. You don't need to experience exactly what I do when you see red. As long as we share a common understanding of what red represents, we can communicate. Now consider Helen Keller once again. She never saw red, never experienced visual qualia in the way most of us do. Yet, through symbolic language, through metaphor, analogy, and careful descriptions, she was able to grasp what red means. That's where language proves its immense power. It translates the ineffable into something we can grasp, and perhaps that's why it may matter more than the sensory qualia itself. Think about this. Qualia are inherently private. The way you experience the sound of rain, or the smell of fresh-cut grass, or the taste of chocolate, it's locked away inside your own mind. No one else can access it directly. But language? Language breaks that isolation. It allows us to point at these private experiences and share them. Through metaphor, storytelling, and symbols, we approximate these internal experiences in ways that others can understand, even if they haven't lived them exactly the same way. Let's go deeper into why symbolic language might matter more than qualia. 1. Abstraction and universality. Language allows us to communicate not just specific experiences, but general concepts. The word red doesn't refer just to one instance of red, like the specific shade of a strawberry or a sunset, but to the idea of red, an abstract symbol that can be applied universally. This abstraction is what makes language so powerful. It distills the essence of our experiences into something that can be shared, understood, and passed down through generations, long after the actual experiences themselves have faded. It is what allows us to discuss things like justice, beauty, love, or truth, even though we all have slightly different experiences of them. 2. Shared meaning. While qualia are subjective, symbolic language is collective. If you and I have a different experience of the color red, it doesn't really matter in practical terms. What matters is that we both understand the same symbol for red and can use it to communicate. We can talk about traffic lights, red flags, or a red sky, and we'll be on the same page because the symbol is shared, even if our subjective experiences differ. The shared meaning created by symbolic language creates a common ground, one where individuals, each isolated within their own qualia, can still meaningfully interact and collaborate. 3. Construction of complex ideas. Human understanding, especially in philosophy, science, and art, often requires us to build conceptual frameworks far more complex than any one experience could provide. These frameworks are made possible by language. Think of mathematical symbols, scientific theories, or philosophical debates about consciousness. All of these are abstractions built on symbols, not direct sensory experiences. We understand black holes not because we've ever experienced one, but because language and symbols allow us to conceptualize things beyond the limits of our direct perception. 4. Language as a tool for self-awareness. In some ways, language doesn't just help us communicate with others. It helps us understand ourselves. Humans often process their thoughts by verbalizing them, even if only internally. Without language, it would be harder to reflect on abstract ideas, to work through complex emotions, or to engage in deep reasoning. This ability to reflect using symbolic language may be what distinguishes human consciousness from that of other animals. From that of other animals, allows us to construct our identities, our goals, and even our own narratives. Number 5. Expanding experience. While qualia may give us direct access to sensory experiences, language extends our experience beyond the limits of the body. Through language, we can imagine things we've never encountered. I've never been to another galaxy, but I can understand it through language. I've never experienced being an octopus, but language can take me inside the mind of such a creature, if only for a moment. Symbolic language expands the boundaries of what's possible in a way that pure experience cannot. In this sense, language allows us to transcend the limitations of our immediate environment and explore the infinite. Where does this leave qualia? Qualia still matter, of course. They are the building blocks of our internal experiences. But they are, as philosopher Thomas Nagel once said, tied to the what it is like aspect of experience. They are deeply personal, ineffable. You and I can't directly swap qualia. Language, on the other hand, allows us to navigate these inner worlds, providing us with the means to make sense of our experiences and connect them with those of others. So, is symbolic language more important than qualia? It's possible to argue that it is, at least when it comes to making sense of the world collectively. Language is the great connector. It bridges the gap between isolated minds and allows us to build shared realities. It provides a scaffolding for meaning, for understanding, and for knowledge. Without it, we would be locked in our own heads, isolated by the walls of our subjective experiences. But with it, we can create entire worlds of meaning, far richer and more complex than anything we could experience alone. In the end, maybe language is the key that turns private experiences into public knowledge, turning the isolated into the shared. It's the reason why Helen Keller, though cut off from certain senses, could still know the redness smell, a streak of red, not in the way a sighted person might, but in a way just as rich and meaningful, built from the symbols and associations of her own sensory world.